But it is unquestionable, is it not, that Epstein introduced young women to Prince Andrew?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I have a woman, Sarah, I talk about. Quite a lot of stuff was taken out for legal reasons.
Long before the BBC interview, long before the lawsuits and the public fallout, senior palace figures were already alarmed by what staff were quietly reporting about Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. Not rumours on social media, but complaints from people who worked around him every day. New allegations have come to light that claim his behaviour was so extreme it raised internal red flags years before his downfall. And some of the details being alleged now are deeply uncomfortable to hear. In the book written by royal biographer Andrew Lownie, titled The Rise and Fall of the House of York, Lownie says he drew on interviews with hundreds of sources, including previously unpublished testimony. According to him, this is not a story about one bad moment or one bad decision. It is a long-running pattern that palace insiders, hotel staff and associates say went on for years.
But I think there's absolutely no doubt that one of there were two prongs to the relationship with Epstein. One was Epstein gave him useful contacts, which is what he said in Newsnight, and vice versa. I mean, useful contacts business-wise.
The portrait painted is of a man shielded by status and indulged to a point that staff found shocking. Lownie alleges Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor was routinely abusive toward employees, particularly those working in private spaces. There are claims that staff were expected to deal with messes left behind without question, tasks that left some humiliated and deeply uncomfortable. The exact details vary by account, but the theme is consistent. Staff felt degraded and powerless to complain. The commoner, formerly known as Prince Andrew, is portrayed as sexually obsessive, abusive towards staff, and the revelations are, quite frankly, disgusting. Lownie claims that concerns about Andrew's conduct circulated internally well before he was stripped of his royal titles. Yet, according to several sources, nothing meaningful was done to rein him in. One of the most disturbing sections of the book centres on Andrew's close relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein, who later died in prison, is quoted in the book making crude remarks about Andrew's behaviour and appetite for women. These quotes are deeply unpleasant and difficult to read.
But I think also Epstein and his modus operandi provided women and of course then used it to blackmail people. And Andrew, I'm afraid, fell into that trap, and that honey trap.
And while they come from a deeply unreliable and discredited individual, they add to the wider picture Lownie is building. Epstein was once quoted to say Andrew was even more pervy than him. That says a lot. According to the book, Epstein claimed that Andrew's behaviour with women was extreme even by his own standards. The exact wording is explicit and degrading, so I will not repeat it here. But Lownie includes it to show how openly Andrew's reputation circulated among those around him. The book also goes into detail about what Lownie describes as a long-standing culture of intimidation around Andrew, particularly towards staff. One former employee told him that warnings were given almost immediately upon starting work. "When I started, I was warned to stay away from him," the employee said. According to that account, Andrew would sometimes enter staff quarters unannounced, something that made people uneasy. The source added that it felt as though everyone knew about his behaviour, yet nothing meaningful was ever done to stop it. One of the most frequently cited accounts comes from Wendy Berry, a former housekeeper who has spoken publicly about her experiences. Berry alleged that Andrew's disregard extended to domestic staff in ways she found degrading. She claimed that his bedroom habits as a single man created daily tasks that staff dreaded. According to Berry, it was common for scrunched up, soiled tissues to be left scattered around the bed each morning, which staff were expected to clear away as part of their routine. She described it as deeply unpleasant and emblematic of how little consideration he showed for those working around him.
Now, whatever you think you know about Prince Andrew, you're probably wrong. A new book suggests King Charles' younger brother is more depraved, more thoroughly unpleasant, more of a threat to British national security than you could ever imagine.
Colin Burgess, who served as equerry to the Queen Mother, also features prominently in the book. Burgess described Andrew's manner as openly contemptuous. He said Andrew spoke to staff as though they were military subordinates rather than colleagues or household employees. He would say things like, "I want this done, and I want it done now," Burgess recalled. According to him, "do it" became Andrew's catchphrase. Burgess did not soften his assessment. He told Lownie plainly, "In all honesty, he wasn't a particularly nice person." Lownie also reports that after Meghan Markle faced accusations of bullying staff, Buckingham Palace quietly braced itself for what he describes as historic complaints about Andrew. According to the book, there was concern that long-suppressed grievances about his bullying, profanities, and impossible demands might finally surface once attention turned to staff treatment more broadly. Several examples are cited. One former aide was allegedly left in tears after being shouted at by Andrew before dawn. Others were reassigned or removed from his household for reasons that, according to sources, bordered on the absurd. These details may sound petty, but together they paint a picture of someone who exercised power in arbitrary and humiliating ways.
Andrew, in your judgment, is Prince Andrew a sexual deviant who preys or who has preyed on underage girls?
Well, it depends what you mean by underage girls. I mean, no, I think most of his sexual partners have been in their early 20s or older.
The book also recounts allegations of vulgar jokes, cruelty toward employees, and public humiliation of guests at private gatherings. According to multiple sources, Andrew seemed to relish reminding people of their place. Lownie's conclusion is blunt. He argues that Andrew's behaviour persisted for one simple reason. He was never held to account. Because Andrew has never been disciplined, he knows he can behave exactly as he wishes, Lownie writes. And that may be the most troubling part of all. Not just the individual incidents, but the system that allowed them to continue, unchecked, for so long. It's also alleged that Andrew enjoyed extraordinary access to women during overseas trips. One incident highlighted took place in 2006, when Andrew represented the British monarch at celebrations in Thailand. A journalist is quoted as saying that dozens of women were allegedly brought to his hotel room over the course of the visit. According to the account, hotel staff were stunned by the constant stream of visitors. Lownie writes that some staff observed more than 10 women a day arriving at Andrew's suite. The exact details are unclear, and these claims are not supported by official records, but they are included based on witness testimony. What matters here is not the precise number, but the scale of what is being alleged and how openly it was said to be happening. Several women are quoted in the book describing encounters that they say left them shaken. One young model recalled being flown to Mystique after meeting Andrew and said she felt pressured into activities she was uncomfortable with. She is quoted as saying he had no boundaries. Another woman described his behaviour as blunt, crude, and lacking any charm. Her words are unflattering and paint a picture of entitlement rather than romance. After laying out those overseas trip allegations, Lownie widens the lens and starts pulling together a pattern that many Voyle correspondents say they had heard about for years, often quietly. According to several sources, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor developed a reputation for behaviour at private dinners and social gatherings that many women found deeply uncomfortable.
Obviously, it's very news sensitive at the moment because it was through Epstein that Prince Andrew met President Donald Trump. You know, wasn't president
Yes.
then, but what was their relationship?
Well, I mean, the two things that they had in common, which they always talked about, was women and golf. So absolutely, they were very matey.
This was not about flirtation. It was about crude remarks, sexualised jokes, and a sense that he enjoyed putting people on the spot. One former guest at a private party described him as deliberately lewd, particularly when alcohol was involved. According to her account, Andrew would make comments about women's bodies openly at the table, sometimes in front of husbands or partners, as if daring someone to challenge him. The source said the atmosphere would often go quiet, followed by forced laughter, before conversation quickly moved on. Another woman recalled Andrew making jokes about his own stamina in front of mixed company. She said it felt less like humour and more like performance, as if he was asserting dominance by shocking people. Again, These are anecdotal accounts, but they come from different social circles and different periods of his life, yet describe strikingly similar behaviour. Royal journalists have also long noted Andrew's habit of excessive physical familiarity. Several sources told Lownie that he would touch women's knees, lower backs, or arms during conversation in ways that felt intrusive. One woman described it as lingering contact that made it clear the touch was intentional, not accidental. She said confronting him never felt like an option. This kind of behaviour, according to the book, was not limited to glamorous settings. Staff members describe similar conduct behind the scenes. Lownie includes testimony from individuals who say Andrew would make comments to female employees about their appearance, clothing, or perceived attractiveness. These remarks were often delivered casually, as if he expected them to be taken as compliments. What made it worse, several staff said, was the power imbalance. Complaining felt pointless. Andrew was not just a senior royal, he was known for reacting badly to criticism. According to one former employee, the unspoken rule was to tolerate it, keep your head down, and move on. There are also repeated references in the book to Andrew's behaviour in private residences. Multiple sources allege that his bedroom habits were a source of dread for household staff, not because of one specific incident, but because of the routine expectation that they would clean up without question and without comment. Several described it as demeaning work that went far beyond normal duties. One former palace aide told Lownie that Andrew seemed to derive satisfaction from testing how far he could push boundaries. The aide said it was as if he wanted to see who would flinch first. In their words, he liked knowing people were uncomfortable. Lownie also revisits Andrew's social circle, pointing out how often he gravitated toward people who indulged and enabled him. Friends who challenged him rarely stayed friends for long. Those who laughed along or smoothed things over remained close. Over time, this created an environment where bad behaviour was normalised and rarely checked. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor has denied wrongdoing in the past and has largely withdrawn from public life. But the allegations raise uncomfortable questions, not just about him, but about the system that allowed these allegations to circulate quietly for decades without meaningful intervention. Because when you strip away the titles and the protocol, what remains are people saying they felt humiliated, pressured, or silenced. And that is not a small thing. So here's my question for you. If these concerns were circulating privately for years, why do you think it took so long for anything to change? What was the final push that forced the change? And do you believe the palace genuinely did not know, or simply chose not to act? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you want to stay up to date on the latest royal stories as they unfold, don't forget to subscribe.